everybody? Welcome to another Big View session. I am so glad to be with you today. Happy New Year. If we haven't spoken yet, my name is Robert Kennedy III. RK3, that's me. We are ready to have a good time this afternoon. I see y'all coming in. I'm saying afternoon like I know where you're from. I see people coming in from all sorts of places. Margarita from Mexico. Oh, I love it. Fevin from San Antonio, Texas. I like it. The TX Twister drink from Arizona. Yes, Arlene from Dallas, Texas. Nas. Maybe not the rapper, but Nas from London. Devana, how you doing this morning? Desmarie, how are you doing? Jazz from Houston, Texas, and V-Phase from Spain. We're worldwide today. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope the sessions that you've had over the past few months, over the past year, has been fantastical and educational for you. And today is going to be no different. Listen, my name is Robert Kennedy III, RK3. I work with real estate professionals, teaching them how to communicate more confidently and more effectively. You want to get in touch with me, go to getinTouchwithRK3.com. As a matter of fact, we've got something coming up in just a couple of weeks called Storytelling for Realtors, how to connect with your audience and help and drive more sales. So get connected, go get in touch with RK3.com. I'm messing up all my words. Get in touch with RK3.com and join me for that session in just a couple of weeks. I'm excited about our session today. Man. In case you haven't guessed, I love storytelling, and we're going to talk about that today with our guest. Our guest today is Vin Infante, and Vin is a mental performance coach, transformational speaker, and a licensed psychotherapist. I think I need to lie down on the couch today for Vin. Yeah, I don't know. All right, he's going to give me some psychotherapying. He's got 13 years of experience in the field of personal development, and he's learned how to reach and engage with people in all walks of life. And today, he's on a mission to amplify his message and positively impact 1 billion lives. That's a lot of people through mental performance coaching and, here's my favorite word, transformational storytelling. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our guest to the stage, Vin Infante. Let's talk about how to energize and engage any audience in person or virtually. What's up, Vin? How you doing, man?
What's up, Rob? MC, the host with the most, everybody. This guy is great.
Whoop whoop. Oh my gosh, we got, let me holler at some people in the comments really quickly. We've got Denise from Dallas, Texas. We've got Herbert Green from Bowie, Maryland. Hey Herbert, you're my homie in my backyard. I'm in Beltsville, Maryland. And V-Phase says, sorry, my name is Alaska from Spain. Okay, we got a lot of stuff going on there, like Alaska on this side, Spain on the other side. All right. Hannah from Pennsylvania. All right, Bharat, how you doing? So glad everybody is here. All right, fantastic. So Vin, let's jump on in, man. 1 billion lives. That's a big number, dude. How are you going to do that?
Well, that's actually the coolest thing about the goal of having 1 billion lives to impact is that I get to invite people to do it with me. So for instance, Mr. RK3, you are a part of it right now because we are sharing a platform together that you and your team have brought me on. And so now you have been participating and you are a part of my mission. So the cool thing about 1 billion is that it is so unobtainable alone. But what I believe that we really need in this world is more connection. And that's why I set out to do 1 billion lives. And another piece of it is that it can persist through my lifetime. How many people have written books that are still studied and read today? So maybe I don't do it right now, but maybe 100 or 200 years after I'm gone. Who knows?
I love it. I love it. So how are you going to keep track of this, man? I mean, are you doing, you walking around with a calculator? I mean, how are we tracking this 1 billion?
You know, somebody has said, perhaps I should put a counter on my website.
Yeah.
And I actually like that idea. So now I might put a counter on my website where people could just click if I've done something to help out their life. But another part is I am also a big believer in giving back. And I think once you get to this space of realizing that you want to serve people, there's so many ways to do it. And so one thing I do in my business is that I give a portion of all of the income that I earn, my proceeds, and I'm building this more into the business to be ingrained to this charity that I feel very strongly about. It's called Underground Railroad, and it supports rescuing trafficked children. And so one thing that I know for certain on there is that every certain dollar amount saves one child. So another way that I'm measuring my impact is how much am I able to give that actually translates directly to lives impacted and saved.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Listen, everybody, before you leave this session, we want to make sure that you get not just value from the content, but we want you to have continued value. So we're going to be doing a giveaway. Stay with us all the way through the end of the session so that you can get a hold of a giveaway. One of those is a free one-on-one call with Vin today. So make sure that you connect with him on LinkedIn. And when you do that, you want to give some takeaways from the session so that not only do we know you were here, but that we know that you got value and it was memorable for you. So we're going to be doing that giveaway a little bit later on in the session today. All right. So let's start out with this topic of engaging and energizing people in your audience online or in person. So what qualifies as an engaged person? How do you know somebody's engaged?
I would say that somebody is engaged. Like, for instance, this is actually a great example. Right now, we're here on this live chat, and we have these amazing people in this chat who are lighting it up, who are putting comments, who are saying hello. You people are engaged. Give yourselves a big round of applause, drop an emoji, things like that. Right. So you could tell if people are engaged because of the way that they are actively participating. An engaged audience doesn't sleep through your cues. Like if I were to tell people, hey, raise your hand and nobody did it, you probably have this feeling of, is anyone listening to me? So when I think about these engaged audience, it's how are you connecting with the people in front of you to make sure that they are actually staying active while you're going through your speech, your talk, your conversation.
Love it. Love it. Excellent. So when you talk about engaging people, how are you intentional about that? Is that just something that happens accidentally? You come in and people do stuff and you hope they put something in the comments, or what are you doing to prepare for this?
So absolutely, you should never leave it to chance. The worst thing that people could do is give people the opportunity to reject their invitation. Now, when people get up on stage, the first thing that they do to actually break engagement without even knowing is that people might be clapping for them or they might be giving them a great intro and they'll kind of stand there and they'll be like, no, no, don't, stop, stop. And what you're actually doing is you're already subconsciously programming your audience to not engage with you.
Right.
You're telling them, I don't want to receive that. Stop giving me praise and applause. So, the best thing to do is actually stand there very awkwardly. It's like people are clapping and you're just like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's this thing called silence chicken. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's whoever breaks the silence first ultimately is the person that's going to respond first.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is you want to get people to that place where they can sit comfortably in this silence and then feel that they want to engage with you. So that's like the first piece is come out right off the bat and be willing to receive what they have and encourage more of it. Engage and ask, like, how many of you, right? Asking even the audience, like, how many of you people here today have joined because you're looking to get some sort of value to elevate your brand, your life, or your business?
Yeah.
If that's you, drop an emoji, put something in the chat, let us know you're here for a reason. And so these are the ways you start inviting people to get in with you, and you consistently turn it back to the audience. You consistently say, I want you to be a part of this.
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. We're already getting some of these in the comments. JD Wilkes has given us a heart. Tanya Burton has given us a hand claps. Margarita says face blue smiling. Okay, got that.
I think some of the emojis aren't working.
Yeah, Susan says hand pink waving. Nice. Oh my gosh. So you've got this silence chicken thing that you talk about. Um, how long is too long with silence?
So that's always an interesting question, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Why do people dislike silence?
Yeah.
Couldn't it be powerful? And the funny thing is that a lot of the times it turns into a situation where people are almost forced to engage.
Hmm.
Like, if, for instance, you might have heard this before, and if you haven't, here's something new for you and all the listeners, is that when you're on a sales call, the first person, like after you throw out a number, after you throw out the pitch, and you're like, all right, so this is the investment, sit there silent. Don't say a damn thing
Yeah.
because the first person that breaks that silence loses. But loses in the sense that if the customer or prospective client breaks the silence first, you're going to have more of the opportunity to now actually close that sale because you got them to engage first. Now there's a lot that goes into the psychology of this. I promise all of you listeners that I am not just talking out of opinion here. They've done a lot of interesting research, and all of it points back to when you're the first one to be uncomfortable, it actually puts you in that more vulnerable position, but it actually means you're more likely to be influenced. And that's not a
Yeah.
bad thing because if you want to be influenced in that moment, it works out great for you. So if you try the silence chicken with an audience, you might actually sometimes get people just start randomly laughing in the audience. Like it,
Yes.
it could get a little awkward, but here's the thing. Everything you're doing should be built with a strategic intent behind it.
Yeah.
Like, I talk a lot about being intentional, being mindful, and getting comfortable with yourself. So, if we're sitting there in silence and you start getting uncomfortable, you start fidgeting, maybe you laugh, now I'm able to actually utilize that to prove a point. Why are you so uncomfortable that you felt you had to laugh right now? See,
Yeah.
now I actually have you curious too.
Yeah. And I love that word curiosity. I've actually used that technique. There was a talk that I did. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. I believe it was called Command the Room. And at the beginning of the talk, people came into the room and I stood there in the center of the stage for about 20 seconds, didn't say a
Mm.
word. And then I walked to the right of the stage, didn't say a word. And then I came back and I went to the left side of the stage, didn't say a word. And then I walked back to the center and my first words were, words matter. Right? So, I mean, I got that from, did you ever see, this was back in the day, the Super Bowl where Michael Jackson was the halftime entertainment and he popped up out of the center of the stage and stood there frozen for
Mm.
close to 2 minutes. And the crowd was going crazy. He didn't do a dance move, he didn't do anything. And I bring that up just because silence is a powerful technique that we
Yeah.
can utilize and leverage because quite often we're afraid of silence. We're afraid of silence. As a matter of fact, that's where a lot of filler words happen because we're afraid of the silence. So I don't want to turn this into a full public speaking session, but talk to us about filler words for just a moment. How does that affect how our audience perceives us or connects with us?
Sure. So, how many of you out there right now watching and listening have ever heard somebody that's consistently going, like, kind of? How many of you have ever heard that? If you have and it drove you nuts, drop an emoji or say something in the chat. I want to see what your responses are to that. But my biggest thing is anytime somebody uses filler words on me, it
Mhm.
breaks my focus because I'm trying to follow what you're saying. But what it shows as is that you have the inability, at least in that moment, to give a cohesive thought.
Mhm.
So it starts breaking people's ability to pay attention to what you're saying because you're starting to distract them. You're sitting there and you're all of a sudden throwing in things that don't need to be there. Not only are you doing this distracting technique, but you're throwing people off. Now, some people like to argue it creates more of a personal experience because you
Yeah.
don't look so professional when you're being, and when you start doing that, people feel there's a lot less professionality. There could be times to use filler words. I
Right.
don't want to say 100% of the time you shouldn't use it, but if you're in a habit and you're consistently using it, the only thing you're going to show to the audience is that it's going to be hard for them to follow. It's going to be hard for them to engage. I have a good friend. I invited him. I do a podcast with one of my friends, and we co-host it. And my other friend, he's phenomenal. He's in a top tier real estate firm in New York City. I mean, one of the best brands that you could see in real estate. Sirhan. You might know who they are, right?
Mhm.
And I had him on this podcast, and every other word was and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, man, this is hard to have a conversation with because it shows you that this person is just they're struggling.
Mhm.
And so ultimately, you don't position yourself as an expert if you're using filler words. And
Mhm.
so if you want to get into the space where people are taking your speeches seriously, it's just about practicing it enough so that you get to this point where you are actively conscious of not using filler words. Now, some people also talk too fast. So
Yeah.
the filler words come in because they can't even catch up with their thoughts. Now, when I first started speaking, I took a speaking course underneath Les Brown. So for those of you who may not have heard of him, which is shocking to me that some people don't know who Les Brown is, Mr. Leslie Brown, but
Yeah.
he is a world-class speaker. And he had this thing where if you used a filler word, you had to cash app him $10 per filler word.
Wow.
The
Some of us
ca-
would be poor.
that class that class started to do very well without using filler words, and Mr. Brown started to recoup a part of his time spent in there. And see,
Mhm.
even me, I just used a filler word right there because I stumbled on my own word. So for me, it's even I need to pause sometimes, and
Yeah.
that's how you start avoiding them.
Yeah. It's intentionality. A lot of us use them simply because we're not paying attention
Hmm.
and we get distracted. We're thinking things in our head, and the speed between what's going on in our brain and what comes to our mouths are two
Yeah,
different speeds sometimes. So
exactly.
it's hard to control that. We are here with Vin Infante. We're talking about how to energize and engage your audience, both in person, online. And we're going to have some questions just a little bit later on. If you have any questions while we're going through this session, be sure to put the letter Q and then your question so it's easy for us to separate them in the comments because I see a lot of great comments here. I see that TX Twister says, "My lovely wife does it all the time. Drives me crazy." I guess that's those are the filler words that we were talking about. Commissioner Michelle Long, ooh, here's another one. Says Obama does that a lot. Yes, for those Obama impersonators, Obama does say quite a bit. Yes, okay. Yes, a lot of times we've got a few different people. Bimpe from sunny Spain, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Jazz says silence is the best response. Yes, especially when they are wrong and you know that you're right. Exactly. So glad that you all are here. Okay, let's continue this. How do you engage your audience virtually versus in person? You talked about emojis, you talked about the chat quite a bit. What about in person? What are some of the things that you do or you recommend to engage your audience as close to the beginning of your talk as possible?
Sure. So you always want to go into it by asking questions.
Mhm.
Here's a few things you want to look at. One is a pre-frame. You want to and this is actually going back again to psychology. You
Mhm.
want to tell people what they should be looking for. So, Robert, you did it actually, I believe, is at the start of this. Stick through for the whole thing because we have something for you.
Yeah.
And you've pre-framed it so people are actually hyper aware. Now, from a neurological, psychological standpoint, activates their reticular activating system, which is RAS for short. And
Mhm.
what that is it's the thing that creates hyper awareness within you. So when you start pre-framing people and you're telling people, hey, would it be worth it if I told you you can start learning how to master your entire life if you just listen to the 5 easy steps that I'm going to outline in this talk? So
Yeah.
now they know what they're supposed to expect and what they're supposed to listen for. So they're actually going to be more focused, even for that. And they don't want to break their focus because they might miss the thing they're looking for. So you're kind of training people in a way, but in a good way, right? Because we're here to help you guys. So we're
Yeah.
not trying to train you like lab dogs, but we're trying to tell you what to look out for. Number two is a lot of questions. I see speakers all the time sit there and just talk about themselves or talk about the knowledge they want to give, but questions build engagement. Questions also get you curious.
Yeah.
So if you noticed, I said at the start, I said, how many of you are here? Raise my hand. How many of you are here because of the fact that you're looking to learn something to elevate your life or business? If that's you, drop a chat emoji. However, if you're in person, you say, if that's you, raise your hand, give me a yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you ask this another question. I always like to start with 2. And so then you'll say, how many of you are here because you not only want to elevate your life and business, but you want to create more impact in the world? If that's you, raise your hand, give me a yes. You get people engaged by getting them to engage themselves, get their body involved, get their voice involved. The more physiological ways that you could get people to play on the engagement, the more bought in they're going to be. And for anyone who's out there who wants to try this, if you start doing the hand raise and people don't answer, I have a great way for you to break the tension. You ask a third question and you say, how many of you out there aren't going to raise your hand and say yes no matter what I say? If that's you, give me a yes.
Yes. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it all comes back to that. You just want people to get their bodies into it. And anything that you would do in this chat box, you could do it with people. And the last thing I want to say, because I think this is also extremely important, is people struggle to engage because they don't feel connected. And they don't feel connected because at some point with a lot of speakers, the speech just turns into a story about them or whatever they want to teach. So consistently bringing in the I versus you is what's going to get people really engaged. So when I'm telling a story, I might say something along the lines of, I struggled a lot with my depression in life. I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and panic disorder, and it severely impacted me. How
Right.
many of you have ever felt that you were crippled, that you couldn't get out of bed, not physically, but emotionally? Does that ever happen to you? Because that's what I've struggled with. So now all of a sudden I am building that path. It's from me to you back to the story. And that's how you keep people consistently coming back to the story with these touch points of reminding them, has it happened to you? Are you involved? Is this your story just as much as it is mine?
Yeah. I love the end that you just talked about. It really is a segue for a question that I've been pondering as we've been talking here. You have a lot of audience members. They may or may not know who you are.
Mhm.
They may be dealing with something, struggling with something internally. And so they come to a lot of sessions with their guards up. Who's this guy? What's he going to share with me? What I'm not going to answer any questions. I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not going to do anything. And they've got these walls and they've got these defenses up. As a speaker, how do you begin to lower those guards or soften the walls that they have put up for you? How do you do that?
Your vulnerability becomes your invulnerability.
Mm,
Most people don't know that though. So the people who still struggle with their vulnerability will have their defenses up. The best way to disarm somebody is not by trying to disarm them. It's by showing that you're willing to disarm yourself in front
wow.
of them. How powerful has it been in those videos? And maybe they've been few and far between. Has anyone ever seen this video? There's a cop and there's a guy with a knife, and the cop, he just puts his gun down, he puts it away, he says, I'm just here to talk to you, man. I want to talk. I've seen
Mm,
videos like that. I've watched them full through. And the guy, don't get me wrong, sometimes it could go wrong, right? Sometimes it could go wrong.
yeah.
But the guy has this sense that this guy's not coming for me now. Maybe I don't need the knife.
Right.
But the audience is the same way. Your audience is gonna feel uncomfortable because they don't know you. They have no reason to know, like, or trust you.
Mhm.
In your ability to start building connection is actually by leading with your vulnerability, but most importantly, your story. Why are you an authority? What have you gone through? How did you overcome it? What makes you the person that people should be listening to right here, right now? Why are you that? And so you wanna start with this format, and we could dive more into this, but there's a structure and a format to how you should show up as a speaker.
Mhm.
And it's STT, which is story, teach, and tool. And your story is your ability to connect with your audience, build the like, know, and trust factor. Give
Yeah.
them the opportunity to see who you are, why you're there, what you're going to bring to the table, and why are you the person to do it.
Can you repeat that acronym again? STT. Repeat that again
Yes.
for our audience, please.
STT is story, teach, and tool. It is the three-part process of any good speaker you will ever see. And now that I'm activating your reticular activation system, and you're becoming aware of this, you might start noticing it as you go listen to other speakers.
Mhm. Excellent. I love the story piece of this.
Mm.
I am big into storytelling. And one of the questions I often get is, Robert, how do I know what story to tell? What's the right story to tell for my audience? What makes them get it? Is every story a good story? What advice do you have for somebody who asks that question?
Well, the cool part about that question is that it actually falls directly in the STT format.
Mhm.
Your story, for it to actually be good and effective in reaching an audience, is being able to present the tool in the teaching. Because there's a whole process that goes on here, and I've even seen this in coaching.
Mhm.
So as a coach, as a therapist, I always use stories to connect with people because one, research shows people learn best in two ways. One is through acronyms, and two is through
Yeah.
stories. And so anytime you're telling a story, what you're actually doing, which is why it helps people learn so well, is you are shifting their belief systems and their realities to the possibilities of life by presenting some new evidence that they've never considered. That's the power of a story. But how you create it to be more impactful than just the story is making sure that your story flows into a teaching.
Mhm.
That teaching is the information that now, once somebody knows, likes, and trusts you, they're going to be willing to learn something from you. But you can't leave them hanging. Once they learn something from you, you need to relate it to that last part, which is the tool, which is now you're challenging them to take an action to do something with the information to get a new result in their life. So, to answer your question, the biggest thing I would say is if somebody wants to actually know if their story is going to be impactful, ask not only what is your story, but how can I teach somebody something and how could they apply it
Yeah.
so that it could provide a result in their life?
Yeah. I want to lean back into the defensive piece of things for
Yeah.
just a few moments. We've all experienced this. We go
Mhm.
to a session or
Mhm.
we go to a webinar, especially if you're a coach, consultant, and you do things online. Inevitably, at some point, there is a pitch of some sort.
Mm. Yes.
Right. There is a sales pitch. There is, I'll use the softer word, there's a call to action that takes place.
Mm.
And people, they could be disarmed, they could be having a good time. They start to sense that that pitch is coming. The walls begin to, I'm not going to put take on my credit card. I'm not. Right. And they start doing that. As a speaker, what do you do if you start to sense defensiveness starting to creep back in? Or how do you set up your speech, your talk, your webinar so that it minimizes the defensiveness as you get closer to a call to action?
Man, I love that question. That is so great. And it's so important because we see it all the time. How many times anybody in the chat here, some of y'all, you get a message from somebody, you're thinking they want to connect, and all of a sudden they're like, "So yeah, you should buy this or you should do this." And it's like, "Sir, sir, I accepted your message. I don't want your thing."
Right.
And it's so true because people don't know how to sell because they don't know how to ask permission.
Mm.
For instance, one of the biggest things, so let's talk about real quick because I think this will be the easiest part, is if you've already gotten to that point where you've activated people's defenses, meet them where they're at. Say, "Hey, this may not be for all of you, but I would like to invite you, for anybody who would like to go deeper, who enjoyed this information, pull out your phone, scan this QR code, book a call with me. I would love to see if there's anything I could do to serve or support you.
Yeah.
If you're not interested, no worries. All you're going to have is this QR code, and if you're in it, go for it. If not, that's cool too." If you've already activated the people's defenses, the best thing that you could do is try to reach the few people that aren't defensive.
Mm.
Now, if you want to avoid all of the defenses to begin with, get used to asking your audience permission. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you guys a story. However, so the best way to structure your speech is after those initial questions that I've gotten in that engage the audience, like how many of you are here for this? How many of you are here for this reason? After that, you ask permission. And I would say something along the lines of, "I'd like to tell you guys a story about my life. How many of you are open to hearing that?
Yeah.
You guys mind if I just give you a little piece of information of who I am as to why I'm here to talk to you today? Because now you're getting their acknowledgement, you're getting their approval. You can also, depending on your flair of who you are as a person, you could just be honest and make things funny.
Yeah.
Let's be real, guys. I am here to sell you something today.
Yep.
So can we just get that out of the way real quick? I am here to sell you something, but I only want to sell it to you if there'll be value in it.
Yeah.
So can we just enjoy the speech? Can we have a great time? And then if there's anyone that's interested after, I'm gonna have a QR code. You could dive deeper if you'd like to explore more. For anyone who's not, I hope you get massive value out of today. Are we all good with that? Can we all just be happy for the story, the time together, and then eventually hearing what I have to offer? Then so you're always asking permission, because if somebody gives you permission, especially to sell them something,
Yeah.
they're not going to be mad or resentful. They're going to know it's coming. The worst thing you could do, and this is where people get that trip up, is how do I go from transitioning the story teach and tool into offering my product or service?
Yeah.
And the reason is because they know they're about to blindside the audience because they didn't prepare them properly. So it's either an invitation to say, hey guys, I would really love to invite anybody who wants to explore this deeper. Scan my QR code. Let's book a call. Let's have a talk. If not, I hope you got massive value out of today, or prepare them at the front end.
Yeah.
I am here to sell you. Can we get that elephant out of the room? If you don't want it, no worries.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've spoken to a lot of speaking coaches or sales coaches, and they introduce the concept of seeding what you're going to be doing throughout the speech. How do you do that without being annoying? You just mentioned, hey everybody, I'm going to be selling something. How do you not blindside them at the end by sprinkling it along the way? Do you have any examples or anything to share about that?
Sure. So seeding is an interesting technique.
Yeah.
It does play on the psychology of people
Hmm.
because, and see, it's tough, man. I don't know how much of a fan I am of seeding
Yeah.
because it is really good, but people aren't aware you're doing it. That's kind of the issue I have with it. That's why I'd rather just come out and be like, "I'm gonna sell you something at the end if you want it or not."
Yep.
Or, "I'd like to invite you to go deeper," whatever, if you want it. Seeding is you're not doing either of that. Seeding is you're putting things throughout the speech to get people to engage and say yes, so that when you go to sell them the thing,
Right.
they've already said yes to it in multiple ways. Where in the sales industry, there's what is it? I think it's a 3 or 4 yeses before a sale.
Yep.
Do you like this car? Yes. Do you love the color blue? Yes. Did you like leather seats? Yes. Did you like air conditioning? Yes. Well, we got this blue leather seated air conditioned car for you, man.
Very subtle.
Very subtle, but in the speaking world, it could be more subtle because I could ask a question of like, how many of you are here because you'd want to make so much impact in your life? All right, awesome. And then the speech is going on, the speech is going on. Do you guys feel like if you had emotional and mental mastery, you could overcome life? Wouldn't that make your life a lot easier? Would you agree with that? Yes or no? And like people are going to be like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
So all the time I'm priming you. And then at the end, it's like, so listen, you guys have agreed you want impact, you want mental emotional mastery. In this opportunity I have for you here today, this opportunity to give you impact beyond measure, emotional and mental mastery beyond any standard you've ever set. You can now learn it all in my course for only the low, low price of $150,000 one-time payment. What do you say? Like,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, people have been agreeing with you the whole time. So you've kind of primed them and got them ready, and you will generate sales from that. The issue I have with that is it may not be the most ethical way of doing it.
Mm,
That's why I'm super big on I want to ask your permission.
yeah.
I'm also a big believer as a coach, and I always tell people or clients this, if you want to work with me, it has to be your permission of inviting me on your journey. Right? When people try to get me involved in their organization, it's like, "Oh, hey, I want you to coach my executive team." It's like, "That's cool. Does your executive team want coaching?
Mhm.
Do they want me to be there?" Because if you invite people on the journey and they say yes, you're good. If you force yourself into their journey, they might be opposed to it.
Right.
And so I always look at it like that. When you're on a stage and you're going to try and tell somebody something, but you're not sure if they want it and you haven't been forthcoming with it, that's where a lot of the anger starts coming. So I try to get rid of that before it could even happen.
Hey, everybody, we've been chatting with Vin Infante. If you want to make sure that you are in the running for the giveaway just a little bit later on, go ahead and type me in the comments. We're going to ask you also to connect with Vin on LinkedIn. So, and give him 3 takeaways from the session. He'll talk about that a little bit more later on, so that you can be one of those who will win a free one-on-one call with Vin Infante. Now, I want to ask a couple more questions about the topic that we've been talking about. We've been talking about how to energize and engage your audience, both in person and online. If you've got a question, go ahead and type Q in the chat and make sure that you ask your question after that Q. So it makes it easy for us to separate the questions. Now, we've talked about engaging your audience. We actually even took a left turn detour a little bit and talked about the sales aspect of things. Let's talk about that energize piece.
Mm.
How do you energize your audience, or why does your audience need to be energized? I'm going to smash 3 questions into one. What is it about energy that impacts how your session goes or how your speech goes? Why is energy important? All of that in one question. Smash. There you go. Bam.
Man. Okay. Why is differentiating questions important? Let's start
Yes.
there. So energy is
Yeah.
everything, right? When you think about what is energy, now energy is actually emotion. If you break down emotion, what it really is energy in motion.
Mhm.
So that is so important because of the fact that energy drives everything, because emotion drives everything. How many times has anyone ever heard this? Let me know if you've heard this saying before. We use logic to justify emotion.
Mhm.
I bought this thing. Why'd you buy it? Well, I said to myself, once I did this thing and I hit this goal, I would buy this thing. Yeah, but I don't understand. Why did you buy a crystal tiger? Because you made $100,000. It doesn't. It doesn't translate. Well, I had to have it, man, because the tiger represents climbing upwards, and making $100,000 was my climb upwards. Right. But why the crystal tiger?
Right.
You see, who put the meaning into this crystal tiger? If anyone out there watching and listening right now is wondering where I got a crystal tiger from, it's me. I'm using myself as an example. I bought the crystal tiger, and that was my justification.
Right.
So, it's important to see if you want people to be engaged, if you want people to play full out, you have to be able to move their energy. I want people to get a lot out of my speech,
Mhm.
and they're not gonna get it if 1, I'm not engaging, if 2, they're slumped in their chair like this, and they don't care, right?
Yeah.
Or 3 is if they're not participating. Because again, it's about getting people to engage with you. I believe everything is engagement. It's the mastery over communication and connection.
Mhm.
When you're inviting people or you're generating energy or you're getting them to play full out, and it could be some simple things. I'll do some strange stuff. Like one of the biggest things is, hey, yeah, raise your hand, this and that. Sometimes I'll say, all right, everybody get up. We need a break. We need a reset. Before I go on with the speech, too many people are not raising their hands and nodding their head off. Get up. And then some people will be like, oh, this is a little weird,
Yeah.
but hey, what does it do? It starts to get people engaged. Is anyone in the audience or even you, Robert, has anybody ever been to a Tony Robbins event? If you have, throw it in the chat. I would love to see it,
Yeah.
right?
Crazy.
I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. Part of my personal story is I quit being a traditional psychotherapist because I stopped believing in it after learning about Tony Robbins.
Mhm.
And I went and I got my coaching certification under Tony Robbins training program, and I became a part of the cult of Tony. And
Yeah.
and so if anyone's ever been to one of his events, you know it's all about move your body, do some things differently. And what's always demonstrated time and time again is energy creates.
Yep.
It does so much more. If you go around and you shake someone's hand as if you barely know them, like, oh, hey, how's it going? what's going on there? But if you were to engage with somebody as if they're your best friend or the love of your life and you haven't seen them in years, how's that going to look?
Yeah.
And so why I'm so big on energy is I want to see how excited or enthusiastic I can get you in the speech, in your life, in your business, in your brand, whatever it is, because energy is the king to all transformation. So state management, energy management, I love it.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people. We got Paul saying I.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
this guy already.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
that that is the key right there because look at this chat. These people are full of freaking energy.
Yeah.
They're all here, they're playing full out, they're engaging. And isn't this awesome? This is such a fun room to be in right
Yeah.
now. I mean, that's why we do energy.
But then what if I'm an introvert and my natural state of being is to be quiet, reserved, soft spoken? How do I energize an audience if that is who I am?
Mm, it's very interesting. I like to consider myself an introvert.
Mm.
I truly believe that people are introverted, and this is what I've come to learn, so maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I've come to learn that people are introverted when they don't feel that they're around their people. So if you believe
Mm.
yourself to be an introvert, my advice to you is to look inward and see where have you felt shut down? Where have you felt closed off, incapable, judged, or shunned? Because I've noticed in my own self-reflective work, in my own processing of who I am and the way I am the biggest introvert around people I do not feel will be interested in anything I have to say.
Mm. Wow.
And so when you're a speaker, you have people that are interested in what you have to say because your message has value, your life has value, and you are important.
Wow. Wow. So that's really good advice. And as somebody who may be soft spoken, are there techniques that I can employ to amplify my energy? Are there things that I can do to drive the energy of the audience differently if my natural volume is, instead of 10, my natural volume is 3 or 4?
Okay, so I have a few ideas here, but one that I want to start with before any of the ways to change everything about you
Mhm.
is perhaps that might be your style. Now, we talked about Tony Robbins before, but another interesting person that I've seen out there is Dr. Joe Dispenza. Anyone in the chat, Dr. Joe Dispenza fan? Robert, do you know Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I don't know Dr. Joseph Dispenza. I've heard the name, but I don't know anything about Dr. Joe Dispenza.
So, Dr. Joe, the way he runs events is actually extremely different than the way Tony Robbins runs it.
Mhm.
Dr. Joe, he will sit on a couch basically the entire speech with a cup of tea in his hand. And he'll sit there like this, and he'll just command the whole room talking, "Hello," like this. "Yes, yes, everyone, what I'm gonna want you to do is I'm gonna want you to breathe in and meditate." Like, he's a
Wow.
very different speaker, but it works for him because it's his brand.
Mhm.
It works for him because people see the results, because they feel the change. If you can inspire people to feel something,
Mhm.
I don't believe it truly matters how you show up, and we've heard this time and time again. People won't always remember what you've said or done, but they will always remember how you've made them feel.
Wow.
And so I would say that is one first piece of advice. If you're somebody who goes out there as a fourth, figure out your audience and how it could work for you. But the other thing I will say is there are strategies. You could work on tone. You could work on posturing. You could work on your positioning. You could work on your stage presence. You could work on pauses, you could work on emphasis, you could work on so many different ways to enhance your speaking that you can create any one you want. I know I didn't share my personal story here, but what I said before was true.
Mhm.
I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and panic disorder. I did struggle with suicidal ideation. I was bullied my whole life. I have been made to know and understand that I am worthless, only to realize how much value I truly carry and hold.
Mhm.
I have been the introvert. I have been the wallflower. I've been the black sheep. I've been every one that you could think of that you would never want to interact with. This man that you all see here before you today, I have built, and I'm very proud of this because I have a message to deliver. That's why I've built this person. And so if you have a cause that is inspiring and impactful beyond yourself,
Yeah.
you can build into anyone you want to become. Your capacity to change is only limited by your belief of how far you can take it.
Wow. Wow. I want to pause right there for a second, just because we are halfway through the first month of the year and people
Mm.
just came off goal setting, came off resolutions, all of these different things. You hear varying approaches and ideas online. You're talking about building yourself or building the person that you want to become. What are some small practices, or what is one small practice all of us can implement today in order to begin building that person?
I love it. Robert, you're diving into my keynote without even knowing it, man. I love it. So, one thing I will say, I hate New Year's
Mhm.
resolutions. I don't believe in them. The science backs up that they fail. 90, what is it? 90, I want to say it's like 92%. 92% of people will fall off their New Year's
Yeah.
resolutions by the third week of January. 40% fall off in the first 2 weeks.
Mhm.
The key too is that people have unrealistic expectations of how long it takes to change.
Yeah.
How many of you out there have heard it takes 21 days to form a habit? Anybody? Let me Robert, come on now. See, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's actually the biggest lie you've ever been told. They've done research. And in this research, it actually depends on the kind of person you are.
Mhm.
They found that the highest performing person found a habit. Uh, Need to reset. They found that the highest performing person was able to create and form a habit in 18 days. And then the person who took the longest to form a habit was 254 days.
Wow. Wow.
254 days. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the average? They've actually settled that 66 is the average amount of time it takes you to form a habit. New Year's resolutions don't work also because you are not committed to the change. If you're not willing to start making a change the day you believe you need to make it,
Mhm.
what that tells me about you is you don't actually want to make it. How many times, anyone in the chat guilty of this? How many times have you said, I'm going to go on a diet or I'm going to start working out, but I'm going to start it on Monday?
Yep.
This weekend, I'm going to eat everything. I'm going to watch all the Netflix because I'm going to be so active on Monday. I won't be able to watch Netflix.
Yeah.
If you're guilty of that, you too are somebody that was not committed to changing and actually achieving a new goal. You see, and people write this one down. This is extremely important to remember. The point of a goal is not about the goal itself. The point of a goal is about challenging you
Yeah.
to become the person you need to become to evolve into who you need to become to live out that goal. That is the science of manifestation. Why people say you can attract things to you is because you don't have to chase,
Mhm.
you simply need to become. And so, the steps that I would like to give you people today, I'm big on identity. Your identity shapes and forms everything. Your subconscious mind, which is always on and always trying to keep you consistent to who you believe yourself to be, is wrapped into your identity. So who you believe yourself to be is going to tell me what you will do and who you will be and who you will become, most importantly. So to switch your identity, you have to first one, please people write this down. I want to give you some good value here.
Yeah.
You have to do one, write down all of your identities. Now, in psychology, there's this disorder called multiple personality disorder. However, in life, we also have multiple
We
personalities.
do.
I myself, I'm a father, I'm a son, I am a boyfriend, I'm an entrepreneur. That right there is 4 different titles. But each title has its own way of being its most empowered version of itself. So, number 1 is write down all of your identities. Number 2 is write down what the most empowered version of each identity looks like
Mhm.
so that you can start creating the blueprint. What are the actions, the habits, the behaviors, the language, the emotions? What are all the things that that best version would have?
Yeah.
And then number 3 is to now set up a plan for taking these actions, these habits. Paul mentioned tiny habits. I agree. Start taking these tiny actions every day. What are the things that you could do daily to keep yourself in alignment to that best version of the identity? And then you will watch as your identity shifts because you have to believe it before you become it.
Yeah.
but you can't become it until you've done it, and you can't do it if you aren't it.
Mm. Wow. Wow. I know we were talking about how to energize and engage the audience. We were talking about stagecraft and audience mastery, but I wanted to pause there for a moment because before we can make a difference for others, we've got to settle into who we are and take ownership of us. And I love the word identity that you just mentioned. How can we become the most powerful and the most empowered version of each of our identities? I absolutely love that. Hey, everybody, listen, we've been talking to Vin Infante about how to energize and engage an audience. We have just a few more minutes here, but I want to take any questions that you have. If you've got a question, go ahead and type the letter Q and ask your question in the chat, and we'll make sure that we answer that question with the time that we have left. So before we jump out of here and before we answer any questions, tell us a little bit about the giveaways that you've got and how we can access those.
Certainly. So first up, we need way more time, Robert. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah.
Does it have to end in a few
Yeah,
minutes?
I know.
So people can connect with me not only on LinkedIn, but feel free. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, all your favorite platforms. It's Vin Infante on all of them. So if you're curious about how to find me and you're not on LinkedIn, search me up anywhere. Number two is I do have the opportunities. I would love if people are interested to explore how to go deeper and connect with me. Feel free. You can get a free call. I love to offer that to anyone who's curious about how they can get into my ecosystem. So I invite you guys to all do that. And then I have a few other things. I have a newsletter that I would love to invite you all to join. I try to throw out as much personal development information as I can. So if you're a personal development enthusiast like I am, it would honor me to have you on my list. And I have a mission board. A mission board is a free resource that you can download off my website. I think they'll also provide links to all this stuff, right? But
Yes.
it is a free resource you can download off of my website, and it is, I believe it's life changing. It's like a vision board, but it's better for two reasons. One, I made it, and two, it is more intentional. It'll help you really start uh, kickstarting and building that powerful identity I talked about.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I see a few people in the comments here. There are two questions that I want to ask quickly. Number one is somebody's asking, can you repeat the three? I don't remember what the three things were, I
Yes.
think, but go ahead. You know what I'm talking about. Can you repeat the three?
Yes. Yes. Yes, so that is Mumbai. So
Yep.
Mumbai was asking about the 3 from before, which is your identities. What are
Mhm.
all the identities you hold? So these are 3 steps for transforming your life
Yes.
and stepping into that next version, the evolution of you. So number 1 is, what are all the identities you hold? Again, the example is like, I'm a father, I'm a son. That's how you start looking at your different identities, all the roles you show up in. Number 2 is, what is the best and most empowered version of that role looking like? So, what would it mean to be the best version of a father? What kind of things would he do? What does the presence look like?
Yeah.
How does he show up? What does he talk about? How does he lead, etc.? And then the last thing is, what are the actions, habits, behaviors that will support building the best versions of those? So now you've effectively built out these identities that you have, right? Your awareness is in there. Now you have also identified what the best version of those identities are. And then number 3 is, you're committed to and creating the action plan, how to step into those and evolve as a person.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it. I am looking at the comments here. I see one question from Laria Gordon that says, I'm a devotional author and I upload daily 1 to 3 minutes on IG, FB, and YouTube. What is your suggestion on how I need to show up to keep my audience engaged?
Great question. One of the biggest things I've seen with engagement on social media is one. I mean, oh man, we're gonna have a lot of fingers. I don't even have enough fingers for this, but one is to look up things that are trending in your industry. So, for instance, devotional author. I don't know a ton about devotional authors or what people are looking for in that industry, but maybe you might want to go and see a Google search of what has been the most Googled devotional of the past month or so and make a post about that.
Mhm.
Because if it's trending and people are searching for it, all of a sudden you're creating content on it. It puts you to have a little bit more exposure or more opportunity at that exposure. I would also say research hooks. So a hook is they say people's attention span on social media is like 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
If you don't catch them in that 3 to 5 seconds, you lost them. The hook is that 3 to 5 seconds. It's the title that gets people drawn into you. So research your hooks. Also, look at, again, if you can form STT in your posts. People don't want to be talked at. It's boring, right? They want to be engaged. They want to feel connected to your post. Story teach tool, every post, if you can. Sometimes people are like, I can't do it. A good storyteller can get a point across. What is the story like? Why should they listen? And if you've noticed, Robert, maybe even you've noticed this, trending on social media, people are getting so invested in stories.
Hmm.
Follow for part 2, for part 3, for part 4, because they need to watch the story unfold. So tell a story, have it teach, have a tool.
Yeah.
Put all of that in your post, you'll start getting engagement. And lastly, Robert actually mentioned this before because he's phenomenal. He said call to action. What do you want somebody to do after they've engaged with you?
Yep.
Do you want them to sign up for your newsletter? Go get your free resource, book a call, give people direction, because whenever you're doing that, you're setting a expectation. Some people might like your content, but then it's like, oh, that's cool content. They might not even know that there's more. They might not even check out your profile. So get them on there, whether it's in the caption or it's at the end of the video, like, hey, follow me for more, or like this, or share this, whatever. Just be clear in telling people what you want them to do with what they've just got in front of you.
Fantastic. And we've got one more question, but this is a really great one. It says, kudos to you, Vin. This is so much better than most of the paid seminars I have attended. So here's a question. Will it be on a replay somewhere? Absolutely. It's going to be on replay on the Big View YouTube channel. Vin, this has been phenomenal. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us and sharing not just your story, but your techniques, your tips, your tools for being more engaging and energizing with your audiences. Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for attending another Big View educational session. Connect with Vin on LinkedIn so that you can get access to the giveaway that he's mentioned. And feel free to connect with me as well on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, or you can just go to getintouchwithrk3.com. And I'll see you for another Big View session next time. Peace. Storytellers, thanks for joining me on the session. I'm so pumped that we were connected, and I hope you found real value in what was shared. Do me a favor, I want to continue the journey with you. Head on over to getintouchwithrk3.com. That's right, getintouchwithrk3.com. On that page, you'll find all of the different places on the interwebs that you can get connected with me. And there are also some great resources for you to download. Download them because they're designed to help you become better presenters, better communicators, and video storytellers. And that's what we need more of in this world, right? Listen, get connected. Go to getintouchwithrk3.com. I'm RK3, and I hope to see you in my inbox real soon.
Teleprompter, create videos you're proud of. Easily trim your video by selecting the words where you want to start and end. Color your presentation with automatic subtitles and highlighting keywords. Add your brand logo. Add music for an emotional touch. Add your contact info on an animated business card on all your videos. Easily replace green screen with an image or a video loop. Stand out with a web page with your logo, your video at the center, and personalized button for visitors to interact. It's one tap to simultaneously upload your videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Always know what to say next with the Big View teleprompter.